back to the Nerdy Grail and welcome to another Comic Con vlog. Yes, I said there was another Comic Con vlog coming at you when I got back from my little break, which while I was on my little break is when I went to this Comic Con. Now this is a Stars of Time Comic Con and it was held down in Western-Super-Mare in the Winter Gardens Pavilion, which was a lovely venue. This is actually the fourth time that I've gone to the Comic Con down in Western-Super-Mare. The first two times I did it was in the Tropicana venue, which was a lovely venue, but then they moved to the Winter Gardens for the last 2 years, and I think it's a fantastic venue. It was a lovely convention, staff were brilliant, the guests that we saw were fantastic. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the little bit of footage that I managed to get from the convention, and then we will come back together. I will show you all the that I got signed, all the photos from all the different guests that I met, and give you my positives and negatives of the Stars of Time Comic Con down in Western-Super-Mare, the summer variant. So let me hand you back over to past Nerdy Grail, and you'll see some footage from the convention.
My keys. Where's my phone? Yeah, we'll do downstairs.
Outside and film the thing through.
And I am back from the convention, and wow, what an absolutely scorching day it was. The sun was shining, you know, it was beautiful, but I was sweltering in my outfit. Me and my fiancée, we went dressed as the 14th Doctor and the Toy Maker, which we went to a lot of our conventions last year dressed as, and oh my goodness, by the time it got to midday, we were sweating standing in those queues, because even though the whole venue was fairly well ventilated, obviously the amount of people that were queuing up and shimmying through the little corridors around the venue, it did get a bit hot after a little while. But we managed to see everyone we wanted to see, and I managed to get signed everything that I wanted to sign. The first thing I did want to actually show is, and I didn't do this last year, but I felt like doing it this year, is on their website they had posters, A3 posters that you could pre-order and book ahead of time. They said they were only limiting them to about 100, so I thought, you know, it might be interesting to grab one of those as a bit of a keepsake for who I met at the convention. So I did manage to grab one of the posters, which I'll show you now. It is quite a nice little poster, which simply says the Winter Gardens, Western-Super-Mare. It tells you the date of the convention, which was the 16th of August, shows you some of the stars that were going, like Melvin Hayes, and Brian Blessed, Wendy Padbury, and Bonnie Langford. And then they just show you other characters and stuff that were at the convention, like Lilo and Stitch, Bumblebee, Darth Vader, because obviously it's a mix of different fandoms as well. And down the bottom here, it does actually say limited edition event poster, and mine was number 37 out of 100. So I'm probably potentially going to put this maybe in the background of some of my videos, because it might be quite nice, especially when I do other Comic Con vlogs. So that was quite a nice little keepsake from the convention itself. So I thought I had to grab that. But in terms of the guests that we saw, in particular, we went to see Wendy Padbury, we went to see Bonnie Langford, and we went to see Brian Blessed. And it was so much that I wanted to get signed by Wendy Padbury, Brian Blessed, and Bonnie Langford. It was ridiculous, especially Bonnie Langford. So firstly, I'm going to start with Wendy Padbury, who, if you don't know who Wendy Padbury is, in particular for Whovians, Wendy Padbury played Zoe Herriot, the companion for the second Doctor, played by Patrick Troughton. I have met Wendy Padbury before at a Comic-Con in Barrie a couple of years ago. She did go to the Comic-Con in Western-Super-Mare last year, but we didn't actually see her last year. We saw Colin Baker and Fraser Hines, but this year we went and we saw Wendy Padbury. In particular, because obviously recently we had Doctor Who The War Games in Colour come out on TV, and then they released it on physical media. And so I wanted to get my Steelbook edition of The War Games in Colour signed by Wendy Padbury. We also did have photos with Wendy Padbury, which I'll already put on the screen for you to check out. Lovely, lovely talking to her. She really enjoyed signing the Steelbook, and she loved, apparently, those editions in particular. She said there was something about those editions that she really, really liked. But this is my War Games in Colour Steelbook, which now does have a signature at the top from Wendy Padbury, who said, "Love Wendy Padbury," and she even put her character name, Zoe, with a little X, little kiss, in the corner as well. So I finally got that signed, so hopefully I'll be able to track down Fraser Hines as well, and Fraser will also be able to sign this Steelbook for the War Games in Colour, because I would like to get his signature on there as well. Me and my fiancée also pointed out that Wendy Padbury managed to do it in like the cloud at the top, which was perfect, so you can see the signature beautifully. So that's really nice. So I got her to sign my War Games in Colour Steelbook, so I'm quite happy about that. After we saw Wendy Padbury, the next guest that I wanted to get done was the core guest that I was going for in particular, and that was Bonnie Langford. Now, Bonnie Langford, last year, there was at least 2 different Comic-Cons that she had put her name down for that we were going to. I believe in particular it was the Cardiff one and the London Film and Comic-Con Winter, and I was desperate to meet her, and she cancelled both of those. So when she announced that she was going to this one, I thought, we've got to go, we've got to meet Bonnie Langford. And thank goodness she was there. I'll put pictures on the screen right now of us having photo with Bonnie Langford. She was lovely. We had a lovely conversation with her. I overheard some other conversations that some of the other people who were going to the Comic-Con had with her about her time on the show, that she really loved coming back. It was brilliant. So it was really nice to finally meet Bonnie Langford. She was very, very sweet. I had 4 things signed by Bonnie Langford in particular, so I will break it down for you now. So the first thing I had signed by Bonnie Langford was my Doctor Who The Collection Season 23 box set. So that's the Trial of a Time Lord set. On the front here, I have had it signed by Colin Baker. I have had it signed by Nicola Bryant, who plays Perry. I will discuss that one a little bit later on in the video, but this right here is where she signed it, Bonnie Langford, and she even put her character down the bottom, just like Nicola Bryant and Colin Baker did. So now I've got all the signatures on my Season 23 box set from the Doctors and the Companions. So that was really nice to have. So I'm quite happy about that. So I had my Season 23 set signed. But not only did I have Season 23 signed, obviously Melanie Bush didn't just travel with the 6th Doctor. She also was with Mr. Sylvester McCoy, who unfortunately cancelled this event. He was originally supposed to go, and Bonnie was his replacement. But she did travel with the 7th Doctor, and so I got Bonnie Langford to also sign my Season 24 box set, because I also got Sophie Aldred to sign it at the top, and I got Sylvester McCoy's signature down the bottom here. So now I've got Bonnie Langford to also sign it, and she did put her character Mel there as well. So now I've got the Doctor and the Companions all signed on this box set. So now that set for me is, at least in my eyes, more or less complete. So I'm really happy to have that signed by good old Bonnie Langford. As well as that, I also had 2 other steelbooks signed by Bonnie Langford. Obviously, she returned in the new series of Doctor Who, firstly in the 60th anniversary specials, which I didn't actually get that steelbook signed, so maybe in the future, but also in Ncuti's era in Season 1 and Season 2. My Season 2 steelbook has not arrived yet, but it is due to arrive. But I do have Series 1 on steelbook, and I do have a lot of signatures from other guests. So, for example, on the back here, at the top of my Series 1 steelbook from previous Comic Cons, I've got Anita Dobson, who plays Mrs. Flood. I've also got Millie Gibson, who plays Ruby. And I even got Colonel Ibrahim's signature at the bottom there. And then on the front now, at the top there from a previous Comic Con, we've got Susan Twist. But now I also have Bonnie Langford, aka Mel, who has signed my Season 1 steelbook with Ncuti. So I've got a lot of signatures on my Season 1 steelbook now. Still hunting down Ncuti. We will see, maybe one day I'll get Ncuti's signature on that. So that's that one. And then the final steelbook that I got Bonnie Langford to sign was my Jodie Whittaker The Complete Specials from Season 13 steelbook, which I said before I had Colin Baker to sign, and then at the Wales Comic Con David Bradley signed it. And then on the back here we have got lovely chap who does a lot of artwork at the conventions, Nathan. He signed it as well because he was a unit soldier in Power of the Doctor. But also then at the top I have got Mel to sign it here. She put her character name and unit, so Melanie Bush unit. I do need to go back to her and get her to actually put Bonnie Langford on it as well, but she has signed at the moment with Melanie Bush because I'm getting all the companions and villains on the back and all the doctors on the front. So I got Bonnie Langford to sign that as well, so that's nice. So I got 4 things signed by Bonnie Langford, and like I said, finally managed to meet her, and it was a pleasure. Then, the final main guest that we saw at the convention was Mr. Brian Blessed himself. Yeah, and he had queues going for ages. It was ridiculous levels of queues, but I'll discuss that in the positives and negatives section. But yeah, so we were lucky. He was just about to go for lunch when we managed to grab him. So we got 2 things signed by him. So the first thing I got signed, you might have got a brief glimpse of the first thing when I was going through my stuff from Bonnie. But obviously he played Kinya Karnos in Season 23, the Travel Time Lord season. So I did get Brian Blessed to sign that. Unfortunately, he didn't put the character name on it, but he did sign the box set. So at least I got his signature on it. So you might have seen that earlier on. But the other thing I got Brian Blessed to sign was, I'm also a fan of Blackadder. So I got him to sign my 40th anniversary collector's edition of the Blackadder Blu-ray box set. And he put Brian Blessed, King Richard IV on my box set. He tried to do it in silver, but the silver wasn't really coming out to start with. But then he went over it again then in gold. And I think the gold actually suits it because there's a lot of gold on this box set as well. So Brian Blessed, King Richard IV, really, really nice. I'm glad that Brian Blessed was able to sign that. There was obviously Melvin Hayes as well, who went to the convention, but we didn't get time to see him when we didn't get anything signed by him. But he was also at the convention as well. But that's all the photos and autographs that I got signed and looked at the convention. Now I'm going to pause the video and I'll quickly go over my positives and my negatives for the convention. So when it comes to positives and negatives for this Stars of Time Comic Con Western-Super-Mare, the summer edition, I'm actually just going to do them together. I'm not going to do a separate section for positives and negatives because overall, firstly, I was only at the convention for about 4 hours, so I didn't do the full whole day. We were there mainly just to get signatures, see the guests we wanted to see, and just have a little scour around some of the stalls. So I'm not going to go in too much detail about the positives and negatives. So I'm just going to do them sort of together. What I will say is like a positive to start with is the venue in terms of the space that you got when you're actually in the main hall. I think is done really, really well. It's done really, really nicely. It's very easy to see like where the guests are. They put the guests all at the top and then all the stalls are at the bottom, which is done really, really nicely. You might have seen that in some of the footage where you can see all the stalls in the middle and then all the guests are around the outside, so it's quite nice. I will say, you know, the staff there were superb, especially when it came to Brian Blessed, because like I said earlier, his queue was massive. Literally from the get-go, his queue was huge. And it didn't seem to stop. They had to like turn people away, tell people to come back later. But there was a really, really lovely member of staff there who told us to come back later. We came back later, but the queue hadn't gone down. So we were worried he was going to turn us away again. But actually, he let us come into the queue and he cut the queue off after us. So said, "You are going to get your autograph and photo with him. Don't worry, I'll make sure of it." And then he spoke to us through the whole queue line. So he was an absolute star, an absolute pleasure, made it a very pleasant experience and made that really long queue line really go down because it really didn't feel as long as what it looked like. So I really appreciated that. So the staffing there, really, really good. We went for a massive group photo with all the other cosplayers at the end of the convention as well. And the staffing that were organising that was done really, really well. And they were really, really pleasant and funny and charming with everyone. So in terms of staffing and the actual venue itself, in terms of the way it looks and the way that things are presented, I think it's done fantastic. And in my opinion, I think it's better than what it was when it was in the Tropicana. The Tropicana was also done really, really well, but I think it's definitely a step up, at least in my opinion anyway. So I'm hoping they will keep this venue and keep improving things as well going forward, because there's still things that they can improve. But I think overall, it was done really, really well. A couple of little nitpicky things as well. In terms of like the queue lines as well, I will say, and even some of the staff even mentioned it, even the chap that we were speaking to, because we had to queue a little bit for Bonnie Langford as well, there was no real separation in terms of where the guests were and where you were allowed to walk. So it was hard to determine where queues started, where queues ended, who was just stopping by to look, who was actually getting stuff signed, who was just walking by. It was a bit confusing, so I think they needed to be a little bit more organised in terms of setting out the queue lines as well. Also, I will say, in terms of the stalls as well, whereas there was a nice variety of stalls again, which I think this Comic-Con does really, really well. I've never had an issue with this Comic-Con and a lack of variety. They've got lots of different things. You've got your generic Funko Pop stalls, you've got action figures, you've got a stall which has lots of signed memorabilia as well. So if you just want stuff that's already pre-signed, you can buy that as well. You know, they've got 3D print stalls, they've got masks, they've got raffles where you can, you know, you buy a ticket and you can win prizes. You know, you got face paint, you got caricatures. There's lots of variety. For a small-esque Comic-Con, there's a large variety of stuff to do. They had lots of good photo opportunities as well, where you could have a photo with Stitch, you could have a photo in front of the Mystery Machine, you could have a photo in front of the DeLorean, a photo in the TARDIS. You know, they had lots of different photo opportunities, a lot more than they did last year, which I thought was really, really nice as well. They got the main stage out front where they had a talk, where Melvin Hayes was actually doing a talk. I got a brief little video clip of that, which I put earlier in the video. So there was a lot of variety. Like I said, for a small Comic-Con, they really go all out. However, saying that, me and my family, we did both notice that there was also a lot less stalls this year than there was last year. Hence why in this video there's not actually a haul. I didn't actually get anything apart from my signatures and autographs and photos and the poster. I didn't actually buy any merch at the Comic-Con because there was nothing really that took my eye, and that was due to the lack of stalls, if I'm being perfectly honest, which was a little bit of a shame. But it saved me a little bit of money, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. I will also say as well, even though the venue, you know, is well situated, you know, on Western, on the pier front, so you can easily go out because they stamp your hand. In fact, I've still got the stamp briefly on my hand here. You know, so you can go out, you can get food and come back. It would be nice if they had a little bit more food options actually inside the Comic-Con itself, if you know, to stop those who don't actually want to venture out and travel to go to like Burger King or whatever, you know, just to have some stuff on standby in there that's more easily obtainable. Obviously, when you first go into the convention, there's like a bar area, but I think they could have had like what some other Comic-Cons have, where they got little snack stalls as well. And I think that would do really well in a place like Western-Super-Mare as well. But I get it, they're situated in an area where all that is quite readily available outside. And since they stamp your hand, they're like, well, just go outside and do it. You know, literally it's like a minute. So I do get that. But it would be nice, you know, just for that extra bit of variety as well. But it's nice nonetheless, you know, and I did enjoy it. And yeah, it was a really good convention, I must admit. Would I say it has been the best year? I would say so, just because of how helpful everyone was and how kind and friendly all the people are. We bumped into a couple of cosplayers, bumped into a 10th Doctor cosplayer when I first arrived, and we were talking about some of the merch that was on a stall that we had common interests in, who we were there to see. It was really nice. I had compliments on my cosplay. My fiancée had compliments on hers. You know, so the interaction there was fantastic from both staff and from other people enjoying the Comic-Con as well. I just think the only things that this needs to improve on a little bit is when it comes to the guests, they need to be more clear instructions in terms of queue lines and where things are, if I'm being perfectly honest, because it's not always crystal clear. But to be fair, they've come a long way and they are fantastic. So go and support them. They're doing a winter event as well, which I potentially could go to. I haven't fully decided on that yet. But Stars of Time do other events, other places as well, like Swindon and Swansea. But always support the Western-Super-Mare one, especially since for me and my fiancée, whenever we travel down there, it's on our doorstep for us. So we really do enjoy it. And yeah, and I'm really glad, again, I'll show it off one more time. Really glad to get this little poster, which I might start collecting these posters whenever I go to this convention as a little bit of a keepsake, especially since they are supposedly limited edition. So you might see this poster pop up occasionally in videos. I might even take one of the Doctor Who posters down from the top and replace it with this, just for a bit more variety. But I hope you did enjoy this little vlog from Stars of Time Western-Super-Mare Summer. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below. Did you go to this event, or will you be going to this event in the future? And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is Nearly Grail signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.